On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla and EV podcast, Rivian's first high-volume, more affordable vehicle, the R2, is getting closer to release, and the initial reviews are extremely positive. Plus, Ferrari's first ever full BEV has a very unique interior designed by longtime Apple designer Jony Ive. Toyota gets a bit more serious about electrification with its just announced Highlander EV, and more. What's happening, friends? Ryan McCaffrey joining you for episode 550 of Ride the Lightning, your EV and Tesla podcast. Yes, I guess for 1 week at least here, I've got to flip it around because the headline story is not about Tesla. It's about Rivian, and we've got Ferrari to talk about and Toyota, but there is also plenty of Tesla stuff to discuss as well. Joining me, as always, my canine co-hosts, Daisy the Boxer to my left, looking happily out the window, and on the floor behind me is Lily, the silly Labrador puppy. Well, it is FSD Day tomorrow as I record this. I'm recording on Friday the 13th here in the evening, as I typically do, record on Friday evenings. By the time most of you hear this, however, February 14th will have come and gone, which means full self-driving supervised can no longer be purchased outright for your vehicle for $8,000. That's the bad news. The good news, or at least let's call it welcome news, is that Tesla has quietly updated its rules for the FSD transfer program, giving owners a bit more flexibility when upgrading to a new vehicle, while also clarifying how FSD ownership and trade-in valuations work for some of its newest vehicles. This comes courtesy of Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, "The most notable change shifts the key deadline requirement. Previously, customers needed to take delivery of their new Tesla by March 31st, 2026 in order to qualify for a free FSD transfer. Now, Tesla has relaxed that condition, confirming that your order must be placed by March 31st, 2026. Tesla's also clarified ownership rules to eliminate confusion. Once FSD is transferred and associated with the new vehicle, it remains tied to that vehicle permanently, even if it is later sold to another owner. This ensures that FSD continues to add resale value, a key consideration for many Tesla owners given the feature's high upfront cost. Tesla's updated policy also introduces an important exception affecting the Cybertruck and its soon-to-be discontinued vehicles, the Model S and the Model X, that were purchased with the Luxe package that included FSD. According to Tesla, quote, "FSD supervised from the Luxe package cannot be transferred to another vehicle. As such, FSD supervised will be taken into account when evaluating the trade-in value for any Cyberbeast or model year 2026 Model S and Model X vehicles with the Luxe package," end quote. This means owners of those specific configurations won't be able to carry over FSD to another Tesla. Instead, the value of FSD will be reflected in the trade-in offer rather than transferred directly. Thank you to Drive Tesla Canada for that. Well, that is something of an extra punch in the gut for S and X owners who are forced to pay for FSD whether they want it or not and can't transfer it. However, honestly speaking, I'm just not going to get upset about this one at all because the Luxe package is so new. I looked it up to be sure. It only debuted 6 months ago, that I simply cannot imagine anyone with a Luxe package S or X, or especially a Cyberbeast, because that got the mandatory Luxe package after S and X did, that any of those people would even want to trade in their vehicle right now. And if they are trading in a 2025 car for a 2026, well, I mean this with all due respect, they can probably afford to just buy FSD again. If you're trading in a 2025 for a 2026, odds are the $8,000 is not going to make or break you. As we continue to warm up this week, Tesla has significantly expanded the number of superchargers with the live site view map feature available. This comes from longtime Tesla community member Zach, whose handle on X is BLKMDL3, which I think might be his license plate, Black Model 3. Zach posted, with photo evidence, I might add, he says, new sites I've noticed so far, he's referring to sites that have the live site view map support, the Tesla Diner, Kettleman City, Culver City, California, San Clemente, California, Cabazon, California, Gilroy, California, and Diamond Bar, California. Now, again, if you're not remembering exactly what the live site view map feature is, it's exactly what it says. Is as you're nearing one of those supercharging locations that supports this feature, it will actually show you on the screen which specific charging spots are available and which ones are taken. Now, I know this won't affect most of you directly because these are all California sites. But the reason that I wanted to give it a quick mention here on the start of this week's podcast is because, to me, this means that Tesla must have clearly seen enough good feedback and good results from the initial sites that they supported with this feature, and they decided to expand it to these half dozen plus new sites, which means that this probably, hopefully, will affect all of you eventually, because hopefully this means that Tesla will eventually roll this out to every single supercharger site that they can. I mean, it's certainly a nice convenience to not only see which specific supercharger stalls are available before you get there, but doing so also allows you to tell FSD to go to an exact available charging spot if you wanted to, which is just cool and also convenient. So from here, I say, let's see how long it takes for Tesla to expand this feature beyond California. But it does certainly make sense to start here because California's got some of the most high volume supercharger locations in the world. For those of you who are kindly supporting this podcast on my Patreon page at that most popular tier, that's the $10 per month tier, where you get early access to each week's episode, ad-free episodes early, and you get each week's lightning round mini episode that I do each and every single week on Patreon. I hope all of you enjoyed this week's lightning round mini episode, which was about the 11 car names that I came up with for the new Tesla Roadster. After, of course, we had a Roadster story on last week's podcast about the couple of trademarks that Tesla filed for. I had Roadster back on the brain, not that the Roadster ever gets too far from my brain, especially now that we're starting to ramp up a little bit. But I came up with 11 car names because, it's fun. We get to name our cars. It's cool that Tesla lets us do that. So I came up with 11 fun Roadster names. Check that mini episode out, that lightning round mini episode out on Patreon if you're supporting me there. If you're not already supporting me on Patreon, boy, would I be super grateful if you would consider a pledge. The support tiers start at just $5 a month. And for $5 a month, you'll get early access to an ad-free episode every single week. If you step up to that $10 tier, you'll get that and all of those lightning round mini episodes, including the entire back catalog. There's 180 of them now. So there's so much extra fun, evergreen content waiting for you on my Patreon page if you want to support me. So head on over to patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. We begin this week with other EV news. Yes, the main story is Rivian. The first reviews of the Rivian R2 are out based on drives using manufacturing validation builds. And the early word, I am happy to say, because this vehicle is one of, if not the most anticipated EV right now. The early word here is extremely positive. Now, I want to preface that by saying we still don't have all of the details quite yet. Rivian posted to their social media accounts after those first reviews went up saying, quote, the wait is almost over. The first R2 variant, featuring dual motors and all-wheel drive, launches this spring. We'll be sharing full details, pricing, options, and more on March 12th. So the version that the initial reviewers got has 655 horsepower, yes, and 610 pound-feet of torque, love it, and does 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. Love that as well. That is all super impressive. Now, is that version going to be the $45,000 version? Most likely not. So it's probably going to be closer in price to the Model Y Performance. Now, the Model Y Performance, as we know, is what, $57,500, if I remember correctly. I have to double check myself real quick. Let me make sure here. But I do believe it's $57,500. But in that case, if I'm indeed remembering correctly, which I am, thank goodness. All right, just double check myself. $57,500. I'm going to agree with Hamid, who we follow each other on X. He's a big time investor. He's a Tesla owner. He posted, I saw him post this on X today, that he thought that this version, the version that the reviewers tested, which is going to be presumably the launch edition that won't be the $45,000 base version. It'll be optioned up somehow, some way with these horsepower numbers. But he thought it would be $5,000 more. So so 62.5 basically. And I am inclined to agree with him on that. I think that probably makes sense. $5,000 more than the Model Y Performance. I mean, you get a little more performance out of the Model Y Performance, which is 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. We don't know the final range figure yet. Now, in one of the videos that I watched, I can't remember if it was Doug DeMuro's or Marquez Brownlee's. I'm going to play you a clip from both here in a second. I think it might have been Marquez's. He showed the state of charge, and I think it was close to full. What did he said in the video? But anyway, it extrapolated out. I did the math from whatever it showed on the screen, and I think that it came out to 310 miles of total possible range. And if that's where it lands, 310, that would be fine. That would be perfectly workable. The Model Y Performance is right there. 306 is the Model Y Performance's EPA estimated range. But in any case, we have the price is crucial, right? We know there's going to be a base $45,000 R2. That's probably not what's going to be delivered first this spring. We'll see how long it takes them to get to that $45,000 version. But for now, the reviewers loving this 655 horsepower version. And I wanted to play you a couple of clips. So first, here's a quick snippet from Doug DeMuro's review. And for a little context, Doug had previously given the R1T and the R1S his Car of the Year award in separate years. So he awarded them separately, and Doug reviews a lot of cars each year. So it was very high praise from Doug for the R1. So here is what he had to say, in part, because this video is like 30 minutes long. You should go watch it on his channel if you want to see the whole thing. But here's a snippet from Doug DeMuro's review of the Rivian R2.
I think basically anybody who's going to be able to, who's still looking for an electric SUV is going to want to have this on their radar. There's a lot of great things about this car that I think are really, really, really beneficial. Curious to see where all of the pricing falls, all of the trim levels and all of the versions, and obviously to hear full range numbers from EPA as this gets closer to launch. That could be kind of make or break, but I think regardless, this is a really, really capable vehicle that is just well thought out in all ways. It seems it's fast and fun and surprisingly dynamic, surprisingly athletic, considering it's also a capable kind of off-roading vehicle, and it looks cool. And like R1S, I think there's a lot of great stuff here. And so that's the new Rivian R2. This is a really impressive vehicle. It takes everything we love about the R1S SUV and scales it down a little bit, a more manageable size and a more affordable price point. This really is a well-executed vehicle, really fantastic. And I think even as EV demand slows down a little bit, this will still be a big hit.
I've said this before, but I enjoy Doug's reviews. I subscribe to his YouTube channel because he drives and enjoys everything. I wouldn't say he's an EV super fan. He's definitely not an EV hater. I mean, he's reviewed most of the Teslas, the Model S Plaid. He had very, very kind words for. In fact, I think when he reviewed the Plaid, I played an audio clip from it because it's one of Doug's more memorable reviews when he first floors it in the Plaid. His reaction is genuinely priceless in that video. He was very kind to the new Model X when he reviewed that. He had reviewed the original, the Gen 1 Model 3 Performance. He hasn't reviewed the Gen 2 Model 3 Performance. Selfishly, I wish he'd do that because I own that car and I think it's a great car. But anyway, Doug drives everything and is open-minded to everything. And again, he's already clearly a fan of what Rivian has done, and he was extremely impressed with the R2 on its first drive. Next up, another gentleman who I really value the opinion of, and I subscribe to his autofocus channel, and I guess I subscribe to his main channel too, but Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, longtime Ride the Lightning listener, and one-time Ride the Lightning guest. I interviewed Marquez a while back on the podcast, but Marquez has had a Plaid in his life, and he recently reviewed the new Model Y Performance and had a lot of great things to say about it. Again, Marquez, autofocus is basically pretty much like 95% all about EVs. So he's out there driving everything. Here's a clip of what Marquez had to say about the R2.
All right, at the end of the day, what I think a lot of people are wondering with this Rivian R2 is it good? And should I get one? And here's my honest thoughts. I think if they can nail this price, which they're saying it will start at $45,000 and then go up from there. If they can actually deliver something this compelling at that price, it's going to be awesome, but there are going to be a bunch of trims of this and they're going to go up in price from the $45,000. So of course the one that I'm testing is the highest performance maxed out version. I, as of the time of this recording, don't know the price of this fast one yet. But if the base $45,000 version of the R2 with 300 plus miles of range and decent performance and all of the same character and the same great setup and packaging is still a good product, which I think it will be, this I think can be their Model Y, for lack of a better comparison. I think this can be their actual entry into that mass market vehicle. As long as their margins are good, I don't know if their margins are amazing on the $45,000 version, but I do feel like from $45,000 to $55,000, this is a very compelling vehicle.
There are a couple of other first drive reviews out there of the R2, but those are the two I wanted to play for you because I personally enjoy those two creators and their channels very much. And this is extremely encouraging. I mean, with apologies to the Mustang Mach-E, the Volkswagen ID4, the Chevy Equinox EV, there, in my opinion, hasn't been a real heavyweight contender to truly go toe-to-toe with the Model Y as of yet. It's not that the Mach-E and ID4 aren't good, the Equinox, they're good, but a real, like, legitimate, true toe-to-toe contender, I hope the R2 is going to be that car because it certainly has all the pieces in place. And yes, before you email me, I certainly recognize that for a lot of you, the lack of FSD is an automatic disqualifier for anybody, for Rivian or anybody else. I fully acknowledge that. I'm using FSD every day in my new car that's got AI4. I'm at 98% FSD usage in a performance Model 3, in the most fun version of the Model 3. I'm using FSD all the time. That's how excellent it is. So I completely understand anybody that's that's saying that no FSD is a non-starter. But hopefully Rivian gets there, right? The R2 has the hardware. They're offering it for a much lower price than what Tesla has, again, but they haven't delivered anything. But if they can, and they're still charging either $50 a month or $2,500 to buy it outright, that'll be really, really tempting for a lot of people. Because this car, the Rivian R2, it's fully capable. It does pretty much everything the Model Y does other than FSD. And it even has a trick that the Model Y doesn't, which is legitimate off-roading. So that's, now granted, I recognize for probably 95% of buyers of a mid-size SUV, they're looking for a family hauler. They're not looking to go off-road. But the R2 can absolutely do it, and some of those first drive reviews demonstrated that very thing. But my point is, as a total package vehicle, the R2 is incredibly compelling here in the early going. But the pricing, again, the pricing is such a crucial piece of information. Yes, that base price of the R2 has been announced for $45,000, but when will we get there? We don't know. Like, Tesla did the same thing, right? With the Model 3, which was their first high volume vehicle, as the R2 is planned to be Rivian's first high volume. It took Tesla a while to get down to a more affordable price. They debuted with a $50,000 Model 3, and they did eventually hit that $35K target that they said they were going to. It was a long, strange road to get there, but $45K base price for the R2. We'll see how long it takes them before they're actually selling a $45,000 version. This first version, though, dual motor, all-wheel drive, ton of horsepower, and so as I was saying before I played you those two clips, likely to cost a good bit more than $45,000, probably between $15,000 to $17,000 more than that. So how much more, specifically, beyond just me guessing, we will get the answer to that question in about a month. And I recognize that these are only a couple of reviews. Before you would invest a ton of money into any vehicle, you'd probably want to hear from a lot of different sources. I hear you there. But my point about the R2 is the early returns on it seem to be every bit as fantastic as we had hoped they would be. Now, what will that $45,000 version, as my final point on the R2 here before I move along, what will that $45,000 R2 look like? What will the numbers and specs on that be? Because the $45,000 Model Y is the premium rear-wheel drive with 357 miles of range. Now, I would fully expect that Rivian is not going to be able to match that range number. Hopefully it gets close-ish. I think as long as it's over 300, that's sufficient. But 357 is a tough to beat number, I think, for 45 grand. I think it's probably more likely that the R2 is closer to the standard all-wheel drive that was just introduced last week in terms of specs and performance, right? So the 0 to 60 on that, as I was talking about on last week's podcast, 4.6 seconds. The price on that, $42,000. And the range is 294 miles. So I would expect the base R2 for $45K to roughly match Tesla's $42,000 option. I hope I'm wrong in the direction that would benefit buyers versus being overly optimistic, but we shall see. But certainly a great start of in the court of public opinion for the Rivian R2. Next up this week, continuing in other EV news, Ferrari has officially announced, but not yet fully revealed, its first fully electric car. It's called the Luche, L-U-C-E. The Luche formerly codenamed the Electrica, as I think I had mentioned it at some point on this podcast in the not too distant past. So what do I mean by announced but not fully revealed? Well, we still haven't seen the exterior of this car yet, though we do know for a fact that it's got 2 rows of seating. However, Ferrari did reveal the interior this week to much fanfare, in addition to that official name Luche, which I learned means light in Italian. Here's a clip from part 1 of Ferrari's in-house produced video series on this new car. And the person that you're going to hear speaking in this clip is Ferrari's executive chairman, John Elkann.
All of what we do is about the future. And if you think about a car which is completely different in every possible way to what we ever made, then you need a name about all of this. And that's really, really hard. Then it all seems so clear, so simple. Luce, light.
You see the light in many equations, especially when it comes to the electromagnetic space. It's something that is showing you the way forward. It's not only about the electric. Electric is one part of the Ferrari Luche.
As we were thinking about this incredible convergence of so many different technologies, which is really when also Jony Ive with Mark Newson was thinking about what they wanted to do next. And those conversations led us to understand how important it was to be aware of the history, but equally excited, not frightened, but encouraged about what is to come.
Now, I recognize that that was an internally produced marketing piece, basically, not an independent evaluation of any kind, but I thought it was still kind of an interesting piece there, so I wanted to play a clip for you. If you want to see the whole thing, and presumably by the time you hear this, episode 2 of this video series will be out, you can go to Ferrari's YouTube channel. But if you would do me a favor right now, wherever you are, pause the podcast and go do a Google image search for the Ferrari Luche interior, or you can go to my Patreon page, and I promise I'm not just trying to lure you to my Patreon page. It's the subject of this week's Patreon poll, what I'm about to talk about. So I've posted pictures of the Luche's interior on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Tesla podcast, or just Google image search Ferrari Luche interior, so you can see what I'm talking about as I'm commenting on this, because this is a pretty different interior than, as Tesla owners, we are used to. All right, you've paused it, you've pulled it up, you've hit play again. Okay, so what's notable about this interior to me is 2 things right off the bat. One, it uses a whole lot of tactile buttons and switches and knobs rather than screens, though it does have screens in it too. And 2, it's designed by longtime Apple designer Jony Ive and his new design firm. I don't know how new it is, but since he left Apple at least. But Jony Ive's design firm called Love From, as in love from, I don't know, San Francisco, which is where I am. So Love From is the name of his firm. So the toggle switches for the climate control, the knobs to adjust the drive modes right on the steering wheel, which, by the way, the steering wheel itself is a very retro-looking steering wheel. It's a simple 3-spoke design with a turn signal button, Tesla fans, on each side of the steering wheel that your thumbs hit. So left thumb hits the left turn signal, right thumb hits the right turn signal, which honestly, I wish Tesla had done it that way as well. And fun fact, by the way, Ferrari has been doing turn signal buttons on their steering wheels longer than Tesla has. But other stuff about this very unique EV interior, the 3 small round instrument cluster screens very much look like analog gauges, which kind of gives it a unique, like, retro future look. There is a square-shaped center touchscreen. I guess it's technically rectangular, but it's almost square. And it's got a row of fighter jet style switches and buttons along the bottom row for seat heating or cooling, for turning your climate control on or off, etc. And then there's another fun physical switch. There's an overhead panel up by the dome light, basically, with more buttons on it, including a knob that you have to pull on to activate the car's launch mode. There's even an analog clock built into the upper right corner of that center squarish touchscreen that is, in fact, a small round screen. But there's a physical red toggle switch on top of the display, just above that little clock, that can switch it from being a clock to a lap timer. In fact, after I was poring over the website again, looking at all the renders, all the information, even the windshield wipers in the Luche have a physical toggle switch for off, speed 1, speed 2, and automatic wiper setting. Now, personally, as you all probably know well by now, I have always loved Tesla's minimalism, both on the exterior of the cars, but very much also on the interior. I've loved the interiors from the very first Model S. I loved how just minimalist the interior was. But I don't love it at the expense of anything and everything else. There are other interiors that I like. And I honestly, I know everybody's going to feel differently on this, and I'll go to the Patreon poll here in a minute, but I honestly really like the idea of this interior intentionally being very different from not just other EVs, but from other Ferraris. Not that I'll ever get to drive one of the Luches, let alone own one, so I'll probably never physically experience this interior, but I am very glad to see Ferrari trying to carve its own path forward into EVs rather than just copying Tesla, which is what many others have done as they've come into the EV space. And I wonder, once the Luche is fully revealed and reviewers get their hands on it, I wonder if being very different from other Ferraris is going to end up being a good thing or a bad thing, because I can see the case for either of those scenarios. And I suppose that maybe Ferrari itself sees how poorly the fairly fantastic Porsche Taycan has sold by basically just trying to be a Porsche but electric. So maybe that's part of the reason that Ferrari is pivoting here, at least with regard to interior design. Maybe Ferrari figures that its existing customer base and fan base is probably going to reject this simply by virtue of it being an electric vehicle. So maybe they figured, okay, well, let's just create an entirely new design language within our brand, at least for the interior, to potentially attract new customers to the Ferrari brand. At least that's my best theory for now. So this beast, I had to go refresh myself and look this up. This thing is going to cost over $500,000, which probably won't surprise any of you, given that we're talking about Ferrari here. Over $500,000, so it is going to be in a class by itself compared to other EVs price-wise, because for at least the next few months, there's the Model S Plaid at just over $100,000. There's the Lucid Air Sapphire at the top end of their lineup for $250,000. There's the Porsche Taycan, which can be equipped up to close to $250,000. And then there's the Luche. And then you leap up from there, from that $500,000 Luche level, you go pretty much up to hypercar EV level, and which is one car. It's actually two cars, although they're both based on the same platform. We have the Rimac Nevera at $2 million plus, and the Pininfarina Battista, which is based on a Rimac Nevera, which is also north of $2 million. So I can't wait to see what Ferrari does with this car, even if though they're going to end up being pretty few and far between, as any Ferrari is, and even if I'll be lucky to ever even see one on the road. I'm still excited that they're getting into electric, that they're going to do a full battery electric vehicle, and I can't wait to see it. So as I alluded to earlier, I was curious to hear what all of you thought about the Luche's, I guess we could call it a controversial interior design from Jony Ive. So I made it the subject of this week's Patreon poll. Again, I brought plenty of pictures to that post. And the Patreon poll question, which I remind you is free for anybody and everybody to stop by and vote in every single week. I typically put the poll up on Tuesday evening. This week's actually ended up going up on a Monday because that's when the Luche was, when this interior was revealed. But the poll question was, what do you think of the Ferrari Luche's EV driver interface? And the results were fairly evenly split. There were 3 choices plus an I'm indifferent / just show me the results choice. But of the 3 primary choices, 36% of you voted, I don't like it. There are too many darn buttons, knobs, and switches. 27% of you voted, I like it. The physical switches might be a bit much, but it's nice to see something different than Tesla's ultra minimalism in an EV. And then right behind that at 25% was, I love it. Physical switches are great to pair with a digital touchscreen. So thank you very much to all 260 plus of you that took the time to stop by patreon.com/Tesla podcast and vote in this week's Patreon poll. I hope all of you will take a minute and do the same this week for whatever this week's Patreon poll ends up being. I'm already thinking, unless another big news story pops up between right now when I'm recording this and the time that I go to put up a poll on Tuesday night, I'm probably going to make the next poll, this week's poll, about the Rivian R2 in some way. So stay tuned for that on my Patreon page. A quick pause before I continue with the rest of this week's EV and Tesla news, and there is plenty more of both to cover. A quick note for my EV owners out there listening, and not just Tesla owners, all EV owners. One thing that comes up a lot here on this podcast is how long people actually plan to keep their cars. And a new study I found recently, actually not a new study, but somebody brought this up online and I went and looked it up. And there was a survey data, there was data from this past year that showed people were keeping their cars for 4, on average 12.4 years in America. And with an EV, there's certainly every reason to do that. There are fewer moving parts. A car is more likely to last that long. But whether you realize it or not, there is a timing element to ownership that matters more than most people think. When it comes to EV coverage, it's not really about when you would buy an extended warranty plan. It's about when. Coverage is generally more cost advantaged when it's purchased before your factory warranty ends rather than after. That's because pricing, eligibility, and available options change with time and mileage, even if nothing's wrong with the car. Think of it like tires. You don't wait till they're bald to plan your replacement. You're looking at mileage, wear, timing. EV ownership works the same way. And XCare, my friends at Accelerate Auto, XCare helps EV owners understand where they are now, what changes later, and when it makes sense to act and get yourself an extended coverage plan for your EV. You can talk directly with Tesla and EV experts, not a generic call center, by calling 1-844-755-4186, or you can go to xcare.com, that's XCARE, xcare.com, and during checkout, use the referral code LIGHTNING for $100 off your extended policy purchase. So again, that's xcare.com, referral code LIGHTNING for $100 off, or call 844-755-4186. Next up this week, Toyota has announced an EV version of the 2027 Highlander SUV. There can be only one. I have to tell you, I actually like the look of it. I've not typically been a fan of Toyota's design work. In fact, I will say, I actually like the new Prius. I think it's a nice looking car. The previous Prii were really unattractive in my eyes. And if there were an ugliest car contest, the first generation of the Mirai, their fuel cell hydrogen vehicle, which I think was only sold in California, so probably most of you haven't seen it, but if you Google image it, Mirai is, I think it's Marai. There's a second generation version that just looks like a Lexus that honestly looks fine. The first gen Mirai was like it was like the Toyota designers were betting each other how ugly they could make the car and still get it approved by management. And somebody won. I don't know, but anyway, the point is, I like the look of the Highlander EV that they just announced. It's a little bit like the BMW iX, but in my opinion, it's got a nicer front end than that BMW iX does. Here's an excerpt on it from Toyota's press release. They write, "The new Highlander's modern new look features clean lines, broad fenders, full-length LED daytime running lights, and flush door handles for an aerodynamic appeal. Inside, a tech-forward cabin with a large 14-inch touchscreen, 12.3-inch driver's display, customizable ambient lighting, and ample device charging in every row give it comfort and convenience. It will also have an available fixed glass panoramic roof that will be the largest in the Toyota lineup, adding an open, bright feeling to the cabin. The 2027 Highlander will have a battery electric powertrain standard and be available in 2 grades, the well-appointed XLE or the top-of-the-line Limited. The XLE will be available in front or all-wheel drive. The XLE front-wheel drive models will have a 77 kilowatt-hour battery standard. XLE models will have a choice of the 77 kilowatt-hour or a 95.8 kilowatt-hour battery. The Limited grade will have all-wheel drive and 95.8 kilowatt-hours standard. The automaker says that the front-wheel drive version can travel 287 miles on a charge, while the all-wheel drive XLE with the same battery achieves 270 miles. Upgrading to the larger battery provides a 320-mile range estimate for both the all-wheel drive XLE and Limited. All-wheel drive equipped models will also have features like multi-terrain select and crawl control. All grades will have the latest in safety and entertainment, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Designed to provide a comfortable space for the whole crew, the 2027 Highlander has a spacious interior with 3-row seating for up to 7 when equipped with an available bench seat. Its cabin has an elevated feel with standard Softex trim seating, soft touch materials on the dash and doors, and customizable interior lighting to set the mood. Heated front seats come standard with ventilated front seats and heated second row seats available. When extra space is required, the third row folds flat for a rear cargo area with more than 45 cubic feet of storage. At the forefront of technology, I'm going to just read this is their words. At the forefront of technology, the new Highlander can also serve as a mobile power source with vehicle-to-load technology. That is legitimately good. It's got V2L, a first for a Toyota model sold in the United States. This technology can potentially power appliances like at a tailgate party or serve as a power backup at home in case of an outage. See, this is what I've been talking about, that I wish Tesla would offer this on all of their cars, all including the Model Ys, because this is, you tell people that it can back up your home in case of a power outage. That is a selling point. That is awesome. Anyway, kudos to Toyota there. Specs-wise, Toyota says spacious 3-row SUV with seating for up to 7 over 45 cubic feet of rear storage with third row folded flat. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Assembled in the U.S. at Toyota Motor Manufacturing in Kentucky. Battery modules assembled at the newly opened Toyota Battery Manufacturing North Carolina battery plant. 2 grades, blah, blah, blah. I went over all that already. Equipped with North American charging standard port for wide access to thousands of DC fast charging stations in the U.S. Powerful drive with up to 338 combined system horsepower and 323 pound-feet of torque. So the Rivian the R2 blows the doors off of this in the power department, but that is probably not why you're buying a Toyota. You're not necessarily looking for high performance. You're looking for reliability, right? You want something that's just going to be dependable for you. Now, crucially, Toyota says, quote, sales of the new Highlander are expected to begin late 2026, continuing into early 2027. MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price, will be announced closer to the on-sale date. So that will obviously be a key, like with the Rivian, but at least we know the Rivian's base price. We don't know anything about the price for the Highlander here. That will be a key part of the equation. If they can price it competitively, they might have something here. And I really mean that because, as longtime listeners know, I have been extremely hard on Toyota on this podcast over the years. For, in my opinion, I feel they have stuck their heads in the sand when it comes to electric vehicles, while continuing to milk their hybrid synergy drive for as long as they can, and pushing hydrogen fuel cell. I was talking about the Mirai a couple minutes ago, which, here's the thing about the hydrogen fuel cell that Toyota's got. I honestly believe that they know it's doomed to fail, but they're doing it just so that they can say, well, look, people don't want this. We're going to go back to hybrids. The people don't want these alternative fuel vehicles. They want hybrids, so we're going to keep making those. That's my opinion on hydrogen. I don't think for a minute that Toyota actually believes that hydrogen's going to take off. Anyway, this Highlander is, if you'll pardon me here, it's boring. But I actually mean that as a compliment. I think that's a good thing because people like Toyota's boring but reliable cars. Now, I don't mean any offense to anybody out there who has a Toyota. But by and large, they're not exciting cars. When the first thing, let's play a game, let's play a brain exercise here. The first thing that you think of, the first word that comes to mind when I say Toyota is probably, for 80 out of 100 of you, reliability, right? And they've earned that reputation. Good for them. Yes, the Supra is fun. I love that they brought it back, and they do get credit there. And yes, they did just unveil the GR GT, a legit supercar, which is on the cover of Forza Horizon 6, the upcoming open-world driving game. But their bread and butter is boring, reliable, efficient cars. Side note, in my opinion, I've probably said this before, but maybe not in many years. Hopefully there's a receipt of me saying this at some point in the past, but Toyota should have offered a full battery electric Prius years ago. They could have gotten in there when Chevy was still introducing the Bolt and Tesla was still introducing the Model 3. Instead, they kept their heads in the sand, and what happened? Tesla ate the Prius's lunch. I looked this up just to back up my memory here, and Prius sales peaked in 2012 at 236,000 units in the US alone. That's a lot of cars. But 2012, what went into general production right around that time? That sales would have peaked. Oh, right. The Model S. Prius owners that could afford a Model S started ditching their Prii for Teslas. And then in 2017, Prius sales had slid to 108,000 units in the US that year, right as the Model 3 entered the picture. By 2022, Prius sales in the US were down to 28,000. That is called falling off of a cliff. Because what happened? Seemingly, all Prius customers, they went electric. They went elsewhere. A lot of them to Tesla, some of them elsewhere. Those customers that wanted efficiency above all else, because that's what a Prius is, they went electric. Toyota could have had those people and kept them in the Toyota family. So my point in that little diversion, that little aside, is to say that hopefully Toyota is learning with this Highlander EV. Now, is it already too late? Maybe. I hope not. I mean, the Model Y has been out for, as of next month, 6 years now. GM, Ford, Volkswagen, and others have been in the EV SUV space for some time. But I really, really do wish Toyota well with the Highlander EV. Because if it does well, maybe it will finally convince them to get serious about going electric, stop with the hydrogen fuel cell nonsense, and they'll start making more EVs and more desirable EVs. As I always say, it's good to have not just more options, but more good options. And now I've got a couple of Tesla news stories for you to round up this week's total news package. Starting with this one, Tesla reveals final production specs for the Tesla Semi ahead of the first deliveries. Saw this one on Drive Tesla Canada, who wrote, "One of the most important announcements is confirmation that the Tesla Semi will come in 2 variants, standard range and long range, capable of traveling 325 miles and 500 miles respectively, even while carrying the maximum legal gross combination weight of 82,000 pounds permitted on US highways without special permits." One of the most significant changes between the prototype and production model is the shift to a tri-motor configuration. When Tesla first unveiled the Semi in 2017, the prototype used 4 motors, 2 on each rear axle, derived from the Model 3. This setup was designed to maximize redundancy and torque. However, as we've known for some time, the production version now uses 3 independent motors on the rear axles, likely based on Tesla's high-performance Plaid architecture. This tri-motor system enables a more efficient operating strategy. One motor can handle steady highway cruising, while the additional motors engage only when needed for acceleration, hill climbs, or heavy loads. The result is reduced complexity, lower weight, and improved efficiency without compromising the truck's ability to haul full payloads. Tesla lists total drive power at up to 800 kilowatts, equivalent to roughly 1,073 horsepower, far exceeding conventional diesel semi-trucks. Both versions of the Semi can recover up to 60% of their range in 30 minutes of mega charging. For the long-range model, that translates to approximately 300 miles of driving range added during a half-hour charging session. The long-range version supports peak charging speeds of up to 1.2 megawatts, or 1,200 kilowatts, as shown in a recently released video. While Tesla previously claimed the Semi could add 400 miles of range in 30 minutes, the updated figures likely reflect real-world thermal management and charging curve limitations associated with megawatt-level charging. Tesla's also disclosed curb weights for the first time, addressing one of the most important aspects of electric trucking. The standard range model weighs less than 20,000 pounds, while the long-range version comes in at approximately 23,000 pounds, in line with many typical diesel Class 8 trucks. Efficiency is rated at just 1.7 kilowatt hours per mile, even under maximum load conditions, an important metric that directly impacts operating costs for fleet operators. Both semi-trims include support for electric power takeoff systems, delivering up to 25 kilowatts, allowing the truck to power refrigeration units and auxiliary equipment without diesel engines. Thank you to Drive Tesla Canada for that one. Well, awesomely, those two range specs are pretty well right in line with what Tesla originally announced way back in 2017 when they unveiled those first two prototypes. In fact, the standard range is slightly better all these years later. It had originally been pegged at 300 miles, and it's landed on 325. The long range was announced at 500, and Tesla is delivering 500. I mean, I know I've expressed my uncertainty about whether or not Tesla will see the demand that they expect on two of their next big upcoming products, the Cybercab and the Optimus. But the other big product on their roadmap is one that I have zero reservations about the demand for, and that is the Tesla Semi. Once that dedicated semi factory opens at Giga Nevada and the production ramp is complete, which, yes, will take some time, that factory, as we've been told, will be capable of up to 50,000 semi-trucks per year manufactured. And I honestly have no doubt that Tesla will see that level of demand, probably for years to come. And it quite simply comes down to the economics. If the cost to operate and maintain the Tesla Semi is cheaper than the cost to operate and maintain Class 8 diesel trucks on the road right now, that's it. That's all that matters to these fleet operators. Companies will switch to the Tesla in this situation, if that proves to be the case. I'm not saying they will drop their entire diesel fleets right away. That probably wouldn't be the smartest financial move for them. Over time, I imagine they'll just cycle out the diesel trucks as they need to be replaced and replace them with Tesla semis instead of just getting another diesel truck. For a little bit of context here, I Googled this and here's what came up. Class 8 diesel semi-truck sales in the US, if you're curious how many of them get sold a year, as I was, generally range between 200 and 300 plus thousand units annually, heavily influenced by freight demand and economic cycles. In 2022, sales reached over 309,000 units, with forecasts for 24 and 25 projecting similar, though slightly lower levels, around 300,000 units, indicating a strong ongoing market for heavy-duty diesel-powered freight trucks. And that's just the US. The Tesla Semi can and will absolutely be a global vehicle, like the Model Y is. So that is why I say that I'm extremely confident that the Tesla Semi is not going to have a problem producing, having demand for, and delivering 50,000 Tesla semi-trucks per year once they're fully ramped up in Nevada. And that semi-factory should be opening and operating fairly soon, hopefully in the next quarter or so. And finally this week, Tesla has overtaken Toyota to become France's most reliable car brand in 2025 per a new nationwide reliability ranking published by Auto Plus magazine. I saw this on Teslarati, who writes, Tesla ranked first overall in Auto Plus's 2025 reliability study, surpassing longtime benchmark Toyota across all powertrain types, including gasoline, hybrid, and electric vehicles. The ranking evaluated early problems reported in 2025 on vehicles registered in France since January 1st, 2018, with fewer than 150,000 kilometers on the odometer. This marked Tesla's first appearance in the magazine's reliability rankings, which was enabled by the company's growing vehicle population in the French market. According to the publication, Tesla vehicles showed no recurring major defects beyond isolated suspension arm issues, the upper control arms, which are covered under the company's 4-year or 80,000 kilometer warranty. Other reported issues were described as minor, including occasional screen glitches and door handle concerns. Well, seeing this from one publication in one territory, it's nice. Don't get me wrong, it's nice. When it starts to consistently show up in territories all over the world, that's when it starts to get real. Like, say, for instance, with Tesla's safety ratings, right? Over the years, we've seen it over and over, and it's become a real thing now. Like, it started with NHTSA here in the US, giving Tesla extremely high safety ratings on each of its vehicles. But then as time went on and Tesla's went more and more global into more and more markets, that safety ranking, safety rating became a global thing. Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and so on, all gave Tesla just hugely glowing safety reports. And so Tesla's safety reputation has become pretty ironclad and indisputable over the years. With regard to reliability, I would say, with a measured, just looking at this fairly, the Tesla is getting there. It's nice to see this one from France, which I will concede and happily acknowledge it follows the Consumer Reports Award that I mentioned just on last week's, I think it was either last week or the week before, on a recent podcast. So that Consumer Reports thing just happened here in the US. So Tesla is continuing to build its case and build its momentum in the reliability department, and that's great to see. Especially, by the way, since this French report really is only factoring in the Gen 1 Model Y, since the survey took place last year, but the new Model Y, the Junipers, only started rolling out early last year, and the survey covers vehicles going back to 2018, which basically means all Gen 1 Model Ys, because those went on sale in 2020. In fact, I don't even know what year they got to France, whether that was later in 2020 or maybe not till 2021. But anyway, presumably the results should be even better next time as the Junipers start to get rolled into this survey as well. And that was what the Consumer Reports piece that I told you about had focused on. So Tesla has been building high volume cars now for almost 7 years, starting with the Model 3 once that ramped up. And it's just fantastic to see them improve and evolve on these higher volume cars in this very, very crucial metric, right? I was already talking earlier in this podcast about the Highlander EV, about how first thing you think of when you think of Toyota, it's reliability. And that's why people, by and large, that's why people buy them. And that's who Tesla beat in this French rating here. So it's great to see Tesla just continue to build their reputation for reliability over time. All right, that's everything I've got for you in the world of EV and Tesla news, but I have the Ride the Lightning hotline calls queued up and ready to go. Now, if you're a new listener, the Ride the Lightning hotline is the part of the podcast where you have a chance to call in and maybe be featured here on the podcast. If you've got a Tesla or EV question, comment, or discussion topic, I welcome and encourage you to call in. So how do you do that? Well, there are two ways. One, use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software. Record your question. I kindly ask that you keep that call to 90 seconds or less. Then send that recording over to me via email. My email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. And then just send that over. The other way is to call in and leave a message. Again, if you're going to call in, please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less. Leave a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free number. You can call it anytime. And that number is 1-888-989-TSLA, 1-888-989-8752. By the way, if you know someone special out there with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted, like I do with them, or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more.
Hey Ryan, this is Jerry from Capel. I've got a 2022 Model S, and I'm trying to make a decision as to whether or not to upgrade to FSD. I currently have the enhanced autopilot, so I think I could do that for $2,000. However, the don't really think that is that wise of a financial decision if I'm going to be stuck with hardware 3, which is what my 2022 Model S has. Do you think they're going to upgrade those to hardware 4? I sure have my doubts, since Elon's talking about level 5 and level 6 in the most recent earnings call. I plan to keep the car for a long time, and $2,000 wouldn't break the bank. But if I'm going to be getting a dumbed down version of FSD, I'm not sure it's even worth it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Say hi to the dogs, and I appreciate what you're doing as always. Keep up the great work.
Hi, Jerry. It's good of you to call in. You probably already heard my initial thought on this, which was where I was telling the story of advising my cousin Zach, who also has a hardware 3 car, to not do it. In his case, he was staring down the full $8,000. In your case, since you already have enhanced autopilot, it's quote-unquote only $2,000. Still a lot of money, but a lot less than $8,000. Does that change the equation for me? Man, I could go either way on that. Because, like you, I am skeptical that Tesla will upgrade the cars at all in the end. As I've said, I think they're probably going to wait us out as long as they can. And I think there's a good chance that maybe Tesla ends up just offering everybody with a paid-for hardware 3 FSD car a credit for the amount that they paid, whether it was $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 on a future car, instead of bringing those cars into service, tearing them open, and retrofitting new hardware. We already know, courtesy of our white hat hacker friend Green the Only, that hardware 4 is not a drop-in, plug-and-play replacement for hardware 3, so that complicates the potential upgrade paths for Tesla. Don't get me wrong, I hope an upgrade happens, and I hope it happens soon. But Tesla's already told us that they're not going to revisit this until unsupervised is out there. And while there is very clear and awesome progress being made on AI4 and FSD, we just don't know when unsupervised will actually roll out to paying customers like ourselves. Cybercab will come first. So honestly, Jerry, with $2,000 instead of $8,000, I would say if you plan to keep the car for at least a few more years, 3 years, 5 years, maybe, yeah, I guess, but not, I'm not like definitely you should absolutely do it. But yeah, 8,000 again, it would be a polite, my recommendation would be no, just like I told my cousin Zach. But for you've already got enhanced autopilot, you've got the option to upgrade to FSD for 2,000. If you're going to hang on to the car, I would probably, if it were me, I would probably do it, if I'm being honest. If I'm keeping the car for at least 3 to 5 more years. And you've got a 2022, so odds are, you're probably going to be keeping that for a little while. So I realize that I am airing this call and responding to this call on an episode that's publishing after the FSD deadline, but I still wanted to put this out there for anybody that may have been thinking about this, and obviously you've made your decision one way or the other. I did email Jerry and gave him a private response. Well, I gave him the same response in time. I gave it to him before the deadline passed. So Jerry, if you want to email me back, let me know what you decide. I'd be curious. So thank you so much for calling in. Next up this week, let's hear from Carter.
Hi, Ryan. This is Carter Boswell, longtime listener. I had a 2018 Model 3 that I put 250,000 miles on. Anyway, I bought a new Y. I really love it. Quick question. I have a debate going with a friend. He claims that Tesla is still going to produce the Model 2. And I said, I'm not so sure about that. Can you clarify that? for your listeners. Thanks very much. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey, Carter. Well, I'm not sure if I qualify as an official arbiter in your debate here, but the answer that I would give is that the Model 2 is definitely not happening for now. There was a little pregnant pause there on purpose. For now. I may have said this last week, but in the possible scenario, not that I'm rooting for it at all, but in the possible scenario that the Cybercab doesn't see the demand that Elon thinks it will, remember, he's expecting demand for 1.5 million of them or more per year once the production ramp's completed. But he also expected 250,000 Cybertrucks per year, and it's instead been 1/10 of that. So all I'm saying is, what if the same thing happens to the Cybercab, for whatever reason? If that happens, and again, to be clear, I am sure as heck not rooting for that, but for better or for worse, Tesla's heading into uncharted territory here with the Cybercab. So if things don't go like Elon and Tesla think they're going to go, then Tesla could allocate production resources and that super speedy unboxed manufacturing process to go ahead and build Model 2s and sell themselves a whole bunch of cars, guaranteed, if the Cybercab does not see the demand that they think it will. Provided, of course, that a Model 2 is priced right, and by right, I mean under 30 grand. So the answer for now, Carter, to try and settle it with your friend, is no. There will not be a Model 2, but I think there is a reasonable scenario, like a reasonable chance that it could happen. But for now, it's no. Hope that helps settle your bet there. Next, Pete from Wisconsin, responding to caller Matthew about Rivian and their LiDAR usage in FSD, in their autonomous suite.
Matthew mentioned LiDAR to achieve level 5 autonomy. Now, when my Tesla encounters heavy rain and poor visibility, it just slows down, which I think is an appropriate response. Now, let's imagine Rivian came out with level 5 autonomy tomorrow, and there was super dense fog, and everyone on the highway was going 25 miles per hour. They all have their hazard lights on. What do you imagine the Rivian doing? Just flying through the fog and weaving through everybody? Because I don't think anyone's going to tolerate that. You're going to have to go slow because everyone's going slow. Now, if you sit in a hardware 4 Tesla and you look at the dash cam, you have those 6 camera angles, all really high quality. That's basically like a high quality car simulator. If you were to sit at a desk with 6 computer monitors and a steering wheel, you could drive a simulator like that all day. If it were hooked up to a real car, you could drive it around your whole city safely. The challenge for creating the first generation of autonomous vehicles, which are autonomous vehicles that will mostly share the road with human drivers, the challenge isn't trying to create a better eyeball. The eyeballs on the Teslas are already great. The challenge is trying to create a car's brain. So if Rivian beats Tesla to autonomy, LiDAR will have nothing to do with it.
Pete, I really appreciate your call, truly here, because I love the way that you explained that. And to be honest with you, I never really thought about the idea of the fact that you'd have to match speed with other cars according to the weather conditions, because you're right, you got to be safe. You're not going to have one car flying through bad weather around all the other traffic, even if it can theoretically do so more safely. I suppose the genuine concern with the vision-only system comes from situations where the cameras would be blinded entirely or blinded enough to effectively be unusable. There have been sightings recently of cybercabs and Model Y robotaxis with washer jets hooked up to the repeater cameras on the front fenders and the rear cameras. So that to me suggests that Tesla is at least evaluating whether or not that might be, let's call it, a support system that they need to bake into the hardware suite moving forward in order to help combat the adverse weather condition scenarios that that are going to be very real, right? For a million different reasons and a million different scenarios. But you make a great, great point about building a brain versus building an eyeball. So Pete, thank you again for calling in. Really appreciate it. Final call this week that I've got time for comes from Joe in Frisco, Texas, talking about the reactions to the discontinuation of Model S and Model X. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Ryan, this is Joe in Frisco, Texas, and listening to the episode with the extended number of call-ins about reacting to the S and X discontinuation. And while I certainly understand the kind of emotion and knee-jerk reaction and whatnot, it did strike me that people are getting really worked up about something that hasn't happened and something that essentially nobody is saying is going to happen. For example, I heard comments like, they're not making cars anymore. They're not going to make cars anymore. Whoa. They never said that. Like, the future is autonomous is a vision and a tagline. They're obviously still making cars. The only cars that they canceled were the S and the X, of course, which are, as we know, a tiny sliver of their sales. And they said they did so in order to make manufacturing capacity for Optimus. So, I mean, for the people that are having such strong reactions, again, somewhat, I get it, but if you're not an S or an X owner, or were intending to be one very soon, then, maybe just everybody take a little bit of a deep breath and don't panic here. So I think we all agree that full autonomy, if it ever happens, is a long, long way away. And Tesla knows that. They've even talked about how, such a small percentage of Tesla owners have even tried FSD. So they're not dumb, and they don't have their head in the sand. And I think we can all just, again, relax a little bit. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Your points are well taken. I think the shock of it definitely has something to do with the reactions, myself very much included, particularly when talking about the Model S, since that is such an historically significant car, not just for Tesla, but if I may, and as I had said at the time on that episode, for all of automotive history. And something that I think I managed to forget when I was reacting to this a couple of episodes ago was that the Plaid drivetrain, at least, will live on, not just, in fact, in the Cyber Beast, but also in the Tesla Semi, even though none of us are going to be owning Tesla Semis. But Plaid, at least, will live on, so there will be some sort of legacy of it in the fleet. But I do understand the frustration from many Tesla fans, whether they're Model S or X owners or not, in Tesla putting more effort into keeping, or not, I should say, not putting more effort into keeping those cars more on the cutting edge, right? Because then the thing is, you could make the argument that the demise of S and X kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if Tesla had put in steer-by-wire and 500 kilowatt peak charging into those cars 2 years ago when they unveiled that tech in the Cybertruck, and they'd done a more substantial exterior refresh, maybe sales wouldn't have dwindled to the point where they felt like retiring the cars was the most prudent decision to make. So I think it kind of became a chicken and egg scenario, I suppose. And you can make an argument for either the chicken or the egg, and the decision's made, so it's done. It's done. But again, though, your point is well taken that the 3 and the Y are definitely not going anywhere. The Tesla sells over 1.5 million of those two cars combined per year. And also to your point, that if more people try FSD as it evolves and see what it can do for them, it might lead to plenty more Model 3 and Model Y sales. That's what Tesla's banking on. They told us so very directly. Joe, thanks again for your call. I really appreciate it. If anybody else out there has a call, a question, comment, or discussion topic that you'd like to call in with, please feel free to reach out. I gave you the 2 easy call-in methods for that at the top of this segment. Moving along now to what's going on with me and my cars. Well, as I said at the at the, I guess I was going to mention it in the plug coming up in a little bit. I'll just mention it right here anyway. I got the Spirit of Adventure back from Immaculate Reflections with a brand new, fresh ceramic coating on there. So should be good to go for the next 5-ish years. I mean, it ended up being 7 the first time. It's living outside now under a cover, so realistically, maybe it's not going to get 7 years out of the ceramic coating. But anyway, many years to come. I'm protected with that ceramic coating. Don't have to worry about waxing the car because it's got that ceramic coat. UV rays are not going to be a problem on my paint finish, so that feels good. I'll give you an entertainment recommendation for this week. I was watching and very much enjoying a new documentary on HBO Max by Judd Apatow, and it's called Mel Brooks, the 99-Year-Old Man. And I've certainly enjoyed Mel Brooks's movies over the years, even though I guess I'm on the younger side relative to his very long career. Spaceballs being my favorite Mel Brooks movie, and Spaceballs obviously being the movie that would be clearly Elon's favorite Mel Brooks movie, given that multiple Tesla speed modes, and in fact cars, are named directly after stuff from a Mel Brooks movie. That would be the Plaid, of course, the Model S and Model X Plaid. So yeah, it's a 2-part documentary, so it's a total of 3-ish hours long. I really enjoyed it. So Mel Brooks, and by the way, he's still very much alive and well. He's clearly sharp as a tack, which, gosh, we could all only hope to be so lucky. 99 and to be completely mentally and physically in great health. Spaceballs 2, if you hadn't heard this, Spaceballs 2 is shot and done. It was spearheaded by Josh Gad, but Mel Brooks is in it, so he's clearly reprising his role as at least probably Yogurt, maybe President Scroob as well. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But Spaceballs 2 is done and in the can, and it's coming out next year, 2027, when Mel Brooks turns 100. So anyway, I'm looking for. I'm nervous because the first is such a classic, and the track record of classic comedies getting sequels decades later is not great. Dumb and Dumber is my personal favorite comedy of all time. I was just the exact right. I was 14 when it came out. I laughed hysterically at it with my friends when we went and saw it, and I still watch that movie and I still crack up. Dumb and Dumber 2, which was like made 20 years later, was terrible. I just kind of pretend it doesn't exist. Anchorman 2 is pretty bleh. Happy Gilmore 2, I wouldn't say Happy Gilmore 2 was bad in the way that Dumb and Dumber 2 was bad, but Happy Gilmore 2 I thought was pretty just bleh also. So yeah, it's not with classic comedies, doing the decades later sequel has not historically gone well, but Spaceballs 2 did get Rick Moranis out of retirement, or at least I mean not formal. Rick Moranis doesn't do many movies anymore, and he did Spaceballs 2, so I'm looking forward to seeing it next year. But anyway, in the meantime, if you're interested, check out the Mel Brooks, the 99-Year-Old Man 2-part documentary on HBO Max. Here's your Tesla pro tip of the week. It's from Drew in Ojai, California. This one's for Cybertruck owners.
Hi, Ryan. This is Drew calling from Ojai, California. I have a potential pro tip for Cybertruck owners. I tow a lot with my Cybertruck, and very often we're towing. When we start to charge, you're unable to get to that 1 or 2 spots that allows you to charge the vehicle without unhooking the trailer. So sometimes you unhook the trailer. Always bring chalk so you can do this. So what I'll do though with the Cybertruck is I'll go behind the Cybertruck, I'll put it in high. This lifts the trailer up high off the ground using the suspension on high, and then I lower the landing gear till it touches the ground. I then unhook all the little bits, and then I lower the Cybertruck into low mode or even entry mode, and that will pull the ball out of the coupler. And then I can go charge the truck and then bring it back, put it in the same position using the camera, and then I just simply put it in high again, and it hooks itself right back up into the coupler without ever having me physically having to lower or raise the heavy trailer with the landing gear, so it saves a lot of effort and time. Anyways, thank you so much for your show. I really appreciate it, and happy electric motoring.
Drew, I absolutely love this tip. What a smart way to utilize the Cybertruck's air suspension. Thank you very, very much for calling in with this one. I think you're going to get a lot of appreciation from your fellow Cybertruck owners out there for this tip. So enjoy that truck. Thank you so much for calling in and sharing that with all of us. If anybody else out there has a good Tesla or just general EV or other EV specific for a different EV pro tip of the week, please feel free to call in and share it, and I'm happy to share it with everybody so we can all grow our collective EV knowledge base. That's what it's all about, helping each other out. That's what we're here for. So if you want to call in with a pro tip of the week, you just call in the same way that you call in with a regular Ride the Lightning hotline call, and I gave you the 2 easy call-in methods for that just a few minutes ago. And before I go this week, I want to mention some friends of Ride the Lightning that hopefully can be of use to you at some point sooner or later. I'll start with my old friends at abstractocean.com. So many great aftermarket Tesla accessories. They've got hundreds upon hundreds, maybe even thousands of them, if I were to go in and count everything. But check it out for yourself, abstractocean.com. Click on whichever EV you have, whether it's a Tesla or something else, because they've got products for lots of stuff. They've got a lot of lighting kits for both interior lighting and exterior lighting in multiple colors. They've got the puddle lights with the Tesla logos, etc. They've got the tempered glass screen protectors, custom fit for your EV's center touchscreen. All that and so much more at abstractocean.com. Pile everything you like into your online shopping cart, then use the coupon code RTLPodcast at checkout to get 15% off of your first order. That coupon code again is RTLPodcast, all one word, no spaces. Then some newer friends, speaking of awesome accessories, in a totally different kind of accessory category, RPM Tesla. They've been around a long, long time, longer, in fact, than this podcast has, which is saying something. They specialize in OEM-style Tesla upgrades, focusing on carbon fiber, interior enhancements, and functional accessories that integrate seamlessly with factory designs. In turn, they are all about compatibility, meaning their accessories do not compromise Tesla's design language, their safety systems, or their functionality. They design a ton of their stuff in-house, like all their steering wheel upgrades for the yoke and for the round grip, and they prioritize quality over speed with the creation of these products, so you're not getting cheap junk. They offer over 1,500 Tesla accessories, ranging from cup holders to full carbon fiber body kits and everything in between. Shop with confidence thanks to free returns, no restocking fees, and lifetime warranties. Check them out at rpmtesla.com and use the promo code RTLPOD+, the symbol plus, RTLPOD+, for 10% extra off of your next order. Yes, 10% extra combined with their current discounted sales prices. Check them out, rpmtesla.com. Meanwhile, Infinity Shield. I first mentioned these guys last week. I actually have my Infinity Shield in the box, got delivered this week. I'm looking forward to installing it this weekend. As I was telling you that last week at this part of the show, there was a moment shortly after I got my first Model 3 where, long story short, I did manage to drop the garage. Drop is a strong word, but the garage door slowly lowered and did touch the roof of my car as I was going to back out. I'm very lucky that I got away with literally just a small scratch on the roof glass. But if I had had the Infinity Shield back then, it never would have happened. Well, I've got the Infinity Shield now. So most garages like mine only have a single beam sensor 6 inches off the floor. That's how it detects objects. So if you're, say, between the wheels, if the wheels are not in the sensor path, which is what happened to me, your garage door will just keep moving, and that can be bad, as it was in that instance for me those years back. So this is a leading cause of damaged car hatches, bumpers, and garage doors. Again, ask me how I know. So The Infinity Shield is the world's first full coverage garage door sensor utilizing 25 beams. Yes, 24 plus beams. If you were to, I guess, see it it's invisible, obviously, but if you could see it, it would look like the laser sensors surrounding a big giant diamond in a heist movie. So it detects protruding bumpers, open hatches, or anything else in the way of the garage door. It's easy to install yourself with no special tools. It does not need to be aligned ever, and it's compatible with all garage door openers. It's really a heck of a piece of engineering. Get yours at infinity-shield.com and use promo code RTL at checkout for a nice $35 discount. How about Snap Plate? That's the front license plate mounting bracket that I recommend rather than the one that Tesla gives you with your car. The Snap Plate is strong. It's minimalist. It's just the one you want to use because it doesn't stick to the front of your car with tape. Yes, actual automotive adhesive. That's how Teslas work. I don't like that as somebody that values the look and integrity of the front end of my car, because if you ever want to take it off, good luck doing so without scratching the paint. The Snap Plate and the newer, stronger Snap Plate Plus, available for all the Teslas and many other EVs, are a nice minimal design. They snap on and off in seconds, but when they're on very securely. It won't get in the way of your grille, your radiator, your autopilot suite, your front bumper camera if your Tesla has one, and more importantly, your paint. So you can take it off if you're maybe going to a Cars and Coffee or something with your car, or you're detailing it. Put it back on if you're going to be parking at a parking meter. You don't want the meter maid to get you. Get yours at everyamp.com/RTL and use the coupon code RTL at checkout for a nice discount on the Snap Plate. Immaculate Reflections, I just got back from there last weekend. My wife's 2018 Model 3 Performance got a fresh coat of ceramic coating. So now it's good to go for the next, 5 to 7 years. And boy, it came back looking, well, immaculate. I hate to use the pun, but it's really true. The car looked phenomenal. It's since been rained on. We've had some rain here this week, but man, it is so nice to have it all cleaned up, all detailed up, have that ceramic coating on there to protect it against the sun's harmful UV rays here for the next number of years. So if you're in or going to be in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, if you want to get a ceramic coating done on your car, maybe you want to do paint protection film on the front end or all the key areas or even the entire car. Maybe you want to have paint correction service done to get your paint finish looking as good as it possibly can. Whatever the case may be, again, if you are in or going to be in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, reach out to Immaculate Reflections ahead of time to book an appointment because he does get busy. When I was there last weekend, he had, I would say, 6 or so cars at the shop other than mine. So he's busy. He's a professional and he's really good at what he does. So there's definitely, you can't just walk in. You got to make an appointment, but it's well worth it. Go to irdetailing.com. And here's the fun part. When you reach out to Jeff, that's the owner's name, and you work out whatever it is you want to have done, whatever professional detailing services, just make sure to mention up front that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and you will have the same Ride the Lightning listener discount that he was nice enough to give me. I'm not really a listener. I'm a speaker of Ride the Lightning, but I took advantage of the Ride the Lightning listener discount myself, as you can do if you have any services done at Immaculate Reflections. So again, check him out, irdetailing.com. The Patreon, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but I wanted to give it a little bit more of a mention here. Patreon.com/Tesla Podcast, or just click the link in the episode description. That is the way that you can support the podcast if you so choose. And if you're not familiar with Patreon, it's been around a good, 10 plus years now. Patreon is kind of like a Kickstarter, except you're not just funding one project once. It's you're supporting a creator in an ongoing way. Granted, it's month to month. You're not committing to anything long term. You can pledge for 1 month, pledge for 6, whatever you want to do. There's no strings attached there. But the idea is, if there's an author you like, a poet you like, a musician you like, a podcaster, hint, hint, that you might like, and you want to support what they're doing, you can do that on patreon.com/Tesla podcast. It's, of course, fully secure, fully safe. You can just head on over there to see all the different support tiers and all the little gifts and bonuses that I offer at each tier, and they stack up the higher you go. That's my way of saying thank you at each successive tier upwards that you go on the Patreon. So all the tiers get ad-free access to the podcast and early access to that ad-free as well. The most popular tier, which is the $10 per month tier, gets the ad-free, the early access, and all of those 180, I think it is, lightning round mini episodes with new ones coming each and every single week. So if you can pledge on patreon.com/Tesla podcast, I would be humbled and grateful for your support. You can follow this podcast totally for free. It's just a convenience for you. If you want to follow me on any of the big podcast services like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or TuneIn or YouTube Podcasts, just go to whatever one of those services you like. Search for Ride the Lightning Tesla. You should see this podcast pop right up, and then click the follow button and you're done. So what does that do for you? It means every time there's a new episode, which is every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, you will get a push notification on your device reminding you of that new episode. The referral program has returned, as I think I mentioned last week, or at least, I guess I should rephrase that. My referrals got reset. I had very awesomely maxed out before. You guys all used all 10 of my referrals that you can have in a given year. Mine have reset, so if you're buying a Model 3 or a Model Y, you can buy it with my referral link to get 3 months of FSD supervised for free. The Cybertruck Model S and Model X, the latter of two being around for a short time more, if you order with my referral link, you can get $1,000 off those cars. So if any of that sounds good, if you're planning to buy a Tesla, you don't have to use my referral link. By all means, just make sure you use somebody's. But if you want to use mine, it's just type this into a browser, either on a desktop or mobile device, ts.la/Ryan73014. And that will take you to the referral page, landing page. Then you just click on whichever car you want to order, configure it, order it. And when you submit that order, the referral bonus, whether it's the 3 months of FSD or the $1,000 off, will be baked into your order. Finally, if you'd like to follow me on social media, I'm on X as well as Instagram with the same username on either one, and that username is DMC_Ryan. You can also email me anytime, teslapodcast@gmail.com. Finally, I'd like to say hello and thank you to the top tier Patreon supporters who get their names shouted out at the end of each week's episode as one of their numerous perks for being at this level of the Patreon. I will start with the Maximum Plaid backers. We had an awesome conversation last week for our February monthly hangout. No surprise, the conversation was dominated by the discontinuation, the cancellation of the Model S and the Model X. We had a really good time. Really great discussion as well. So thank you to all the Maximum Plaid backers: Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Will Stedman, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Chris Osborne, KB, Adam Lavoie, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Dustin Hart, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Damon Klein, Jeff Brown, Jerry Slinger, Kenneth Corbett, Brian Bertoglio, Kim Bay, Troy Sievers, Chip Hooper, Matt Chinander, Robert Moran, Rav, Christopher Mann, Michael Williams, and Eric Harbert. The Roadster in Space tier backers. Always great to talk to these folks one-on-one each month. That's the extra bonus perk they get for being at the tippy top of the Patreon tiers. Thank you to Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from near Philly, American Home Contractors, Doug Carey, Michael Gallo, and Tony Figueroa. And last but most certainly not least, the grandfathered in plaid tier supporters. They are George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk in quotes, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. That will wrap it up for episode 550. I guess a little mini milestone this week, right? Ends in 50. So episode 550, man, that is a lot of episodes. But there's so many more to go. There's so much more Tesla and EV fun to be had. It was kind of, it was interesting this week, just having a non-Tesla be the headline topic. But I thought the Rivian R2 was well deserving. That I thought was the biggest story of the week, the first reviews. And then getting to talk about Ferrari on an EV podcast. Sign me up for more of that, please. That was fun. And then good to see Toyota getting a little more serious, at least in my humble opinion, because they, as I was saying earlier, I think they've largely not been serious about EVs, full battery electric vehicles up until now. So I wish them well with the Highlander. That'll wrap it up. On behalf of Daisy the Boxer to my left and chewing I think it's a deer antler back there. She's on the floor just having fun with trying to just chew on that, which of course she can't really because it's not going to wear down. It's a deer antler. Anyway, that's Lily the silly Labrador behind me. Hopefully you haven't been able to hear that chomping this entire time. Anyway, that'll wrap it up. Happy electric motoring, my friends, and I'll see you back here next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.